record button to start the recording, which I just have. And I'm going to share the screen here. And if I can get to the correct recording here, correct PowerPoint over here. And I got a few other people coming in. Rich, you want to introduce our speaker, please?
Yeah, sure will. It gives me honor to introduce Steve Yeager, past president of the Paris Rotary Club. Believe it or not, that club has 5 or 6 Interact clubs, which is incredible. And Steve is the Rotary advisor to one of them. Being that Steve is retired now, he has a lot of time for Rotary, and he's going to need every spare minute that he has accepting this role as a district Rotary Foundation chair. So that's a 3-year stint, and it's one of the most time-consuming district jobs that a person could sign up for. So thank you, Steve, for doing that. So
you're welcome.
We're all going to learn a lot as we go. And one of the problems with the Rotary Foundation is all the acronyms. So it's almost like a foreign language. So the more times you hear it, then after a while it'll click. But in the meantime, just don't get discouraged because there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of acronyms. So Steve's gonna clear some of those up for us today. But again, if you still have room for knowledge, go to the RI website, or you could go to YouTube and see this presentation all over again. So with that, Steve, would you like to begin?
Sure. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Rudy. Good morning, everybody. Just so that you know, we're talking about the Rotary Foundation. I know there are a lot of clubs out there that have their own foundation. This session is not about that. This is about the Rotary Foundation that is Rotary International. And the foundation is the engine that makes everything work. Go ahead and advance the slide, please.
All right, come on here. Everything's working but the slide. I gotta stop sharing. Come on here a second.
Okay.
Let me come back in here. Let's get over
so I know
here.
You are going to have a lot of questions. If we don't get to your question, don't fret. They are going to email your questions to me after the session, and I'll email you responses to that. So today we're going to cover how to spend your Rotary Foundation donations, how to donate to the Rotary Foundation, your foundation responsibilities as club president, reports and goals, and then how do you get help. Next slide. So what is the mission of the Rotary Foundation? Next slide. So the mission basically is to enable Rotarians to advance world understanding, goodwill, and peace through the improvement of health, support of education, and the alleviation of poverty. Next slide. So we do this using grants. There's 2 different types of grants. There's the global grant and there's the district grant. As you can see, they do have some differences. The global grant, they are larger international projects between 2 clubs or districts. It is host community driven. They are humanitarian and educational, sustainable with high impact and measurable outcomes, and funding comes from the World Fund, district designated funds or DDF, and cash contributions. Global grants, they address one of the 6 areas of focus. For your district grant, those are typically local, but they can be international. They're also humanitarian and educational. You can use those grants for youth programs such as Pride, RILA, Youth Exchange, Rotaract, and Interact. You can also use those grants to support the group study exchange, and they're typically smaller in scope. Next slide. So these are your 6 areas of focus. When you do a global grant, they ask that they address one of these areas of focus: peace and conflict resolution and prevention, and that is recognized in the month of February. Disease prevention and treatment, which is in December. water and sanitation, March, maternal and child health in April, basic education and literacy in September, economic and community development in October. So what is the #1 priority of Rotary International? Anyone know? Next slide. Whoop, we're not there yet, sorry. So the educational scholarships, both grant types, graduate, you can go back, graduate and undergraduate, international, local, district, or club led. So you can invest in those educational scholarships. Okay, advance. Vocational training teams, also known as VTT. Those are both supported by global and district grants. They involve international travel. Typically, you'll have a VTT team. I know we did one from Brazil, which is what's pictured here. And we had a team that we sent to Brazil, and they had a team that came over to us. The members provide training or are trained, and there's a minimum of 2 members with local grants. Next slide. Polio is the #1 priority of Rotary International. Our goal is to completely eradicate polio. So you may want to devote a program to the topic of polio eradication. We advocate with government leaders for support. That's how we're able to get into some of these countries to do the inoculation. And you can actually participate in a national immunization day. For those club presidents that have not done so yet, you need to go into Rotary Club Central and put in your polio fundraising goal. Put that dollar amount in there that you're wanting to raise for polio. Next slide. You can also invest in Rotary Peace Centers. We currently have 6 Rotary Peace Centers. My understanding is there is a 7th that is going to be available soon. They are for international studies in peace and conflict resolution, right up Rudy's alley. They offer a 2-year master's fellowship or a 3-month certificate program. The actual districts nominate candidates. If your club has a candidate that you think may be interested in this, then you can try and get them at a Rotary Peace Center. And you can also invite past graduates to your club as a program. Next slide. So DDF, everyone asks what DDF is, District Designated Funds. They are member donations, or I like to call investments, to the annual fund share. The amount that you get back each year is based on what you donated 3 years prior. And that is because whenever you make a donation to the fund, it sits in that fund for 3 years and generates interest. And then after that 3 years, then that money is dispersed. DDF is managed and spent by Rotarians in the district. It provides funds for global grants, and it provides all the funds for district grants. Next slide. So donating to the Rotary Foundation. Here's the World Fund, which member donations to the annual fund share. The World Fund is managed and spent by Rotary Foundation trustees, provides matching funds for global grants, and provides funds for other programs. So just to clarify, the annual fund is the main source for foundation programs. And at the end of each year, contributions directed to the annual fund share from all Rotary clubs in the district are divided between the World Fund and the District Designated Fund. The Rotary Foundation uses the World Fund to support Rotary's highest priority grants and programs, which are available to all Rotary districts. Our district uses the District Designated Fund, the DDF, to pay for foundation, club, and district projects that the clubs in our district choose. Next slide. So donating to the Rotary Foundation. What are the ways to donate or to invest in the Rotary Foundation? Next slide. This is why we need to donate to the Rotary Foundation. And when you have people outside of Rotary or your members ask why, this is why. Rotary invests 92% of the funds that they receive on program awards and operations. And that gives them a 4-star rating, which is the highest rating that a charity can be given by Charity Navigator. Charity Navigator is an agency that rates all 501c3 charities and gives them a grade based on how they spend their income. So 35,000 clubs carry out sustainable humanitarian service projects using donations like yours. 99% of all polio cases have been wiped out. Polio is only endemic now in Pakistan and Afghanistan. They have or are going to be announcing Nigeria as polio free. Next slide. So again, when you support the annual fund share, it's support for today, and you're able to invest and grow your Paul Harris. The donations match for global grant projects and district grants, and that's the World Fund and district designated funds. There's the Every Rotarian Every Year program. That's where every Rotarian in your club donates a minimum of $25 a year to the annual fund, and your per capita giving of your club is at least $100. And then donations that you make or investments that you and your club members make to the annual fund count towards your Paul Harris Fellow, Paul Harris Society, and Major Donor. And we'll discuss those a little bit later. Next slide. So whenever you make an investment in the Rotary Foundation, you receive recognition, and we'll go over some of these recognitions. You have the sustaining member, which donates $100 in any given year to the annual fund. Your Paul Harris Fellow, you receive your first Paul Harris Fellow after donating an accumulation of $1,000 to the Rotary Foundation, and that can be as a one-time gift or over time. Can be a combination of dollars and recognition points. To qualify for the Paul Harris Society, you need to make a commitment to donate $1,000 every year. And that donation should be to the annual fund, Polio Plus, or an approved global grant. To be a major donor, once you achieve $10,000 in donations, that is actual cash, not points, then you are considered a major donor. Next slide. So the Polio Plus Fund, again, it supports for today. It supports fighting that disease today. Judy, can you mute yourself, please? So what you can do, you can have a public event to raise funds and awareness. I know we did a barbecue at our club, and we invited the general public and asked them to make a donation for the Polio Plus program, and then we took that money and donated it to the Polio Plus Fund. Clubs receive recognition for $1,500 or more in contributions. And whenever you make a donation to the Polio Plus Fund, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation continue to match that donation 2 to 1. So your $1 becomes $3. It's a great way to leverage. It makes a great speaker gift. You can make a donation to the Polio Plus Fund on behalf of your speakers, and the donations do count towards your Paul Harris Fellow, your Paul Harris Society, or major donor. Donations do not count towards E-Ray, which is every Rotarian every year. Next slide. Rotary Peace Centers. Peace for today, peace for tomorrow. You can invest in the Peace Center. You can fund a Rotary Peace Fellowship. Donations to the Peace Center do not count towards every Rotarian every year, Paul Harris or Paul Harris Society. Next slide. Endowment fund. So the endowment fund are outright contributions and estate gift pledges. Some earnings turn into district designated funds. The goal is $150 million in endowment. It is a way to leave your Rotary legacy. And again, endowments do not count towards E-Ray, Paul Harris Fellow, or Paul Harris Society. Next slide. Another way is through global grants. Now, the funds for global grants come from many sources: individual and club cash contributions, GDF, and the World Fund. And the contributions do count towards your Paul Harris Fellow, your Paul Harris Society, or your major donor. They do not count towards E-Ray. Next slide. This is the easiest way to donate or to invest in the Rotary Foundation. Just go to the Rotary International website, which is rotary.org, and Google Rotary or search Rotary Direct, and you'll get this. You'll get this form, and you can fill it out, and donations will be made automatic, and you will receive credit for your Paul Harris Fellow and your Paul Harris Society. Next slide. So there's additional recognition. So again, we discussed every Rotarian every year, which is E-Ray. So that's when you invest $25 or more to the annual fund in the Rotary year, and your club has a giving of $100 per capita or more. To be considered a sustaining member, invest $100 or more to the annual fund in the Rotary year. To achieve your Paul Harris Fellow, $1,000 donation to the annual fund, Polio Plus Fund, and or approved global grants. And you can recognize others by utilizing recognition points. So what happens is, for every dollar that you get towards your Paul Harris Fellow, you also receive points. And you can use those points to help someone else achieve their Paul Harris. When you are able to invest $1,000 annually to the annual fund, Polio Plus Fund, or an approved global grant every Rotary year, then you qualify for your Paul Harris Society. Next slide. So now we start getting into some major dollars. Major donor, you're considered a major donor once over time or a one-time donation of $10,000. Now that has to be all cash. Whatever Paul Harris level you are, they will subtract any points that have been given to you to help you along the way to get your Paul Harris levels. Those don't count towards your major donor. Once you hit $10,000 all cash donation, then you become a major donor. If you win the lottery, then you can become a member of the Arch Clump Society by donating $250,000 or more to the Rotary Foundation. You can be a benefactor, which is really easy. That's an outright gift to the endowment fund, $1,000 or more in a estate plan, or the Bequest Society, $10,000 or more in a estate plan. So you can leave it in your will that you want to leave X amount of dollars on your passing to the Rotary Foundation, and that can qualify you for either benefactor or Bequest Society, depending on the dollar amount you donate. Next slide. So, club presidents, what are your responsibilities for the Rotary Foundation? Next slide. So, club presidents, you need to appoint and meet with your club's Rotary Foundation committee if you haven't done so already. You need to review your current Rotary Foundation involvement and review your club's contribution history. Now, how do you find out your club's contribution history? That's real easy. go to Rotary.org, sign in, and then you'll see a tab that says My Rotary. Click on My Rotary, and then after you've signed in and you're in My Rotary, hover the cursor over the tab that says Rotary Foundation, and the sub-menu pops up. And in that sub-menu on the right-hand side, there is Foundation Reports. If you go on Foundation Reports, click on that tab, you'll be able to print individual and club contributions for your club. Also, while you're doing that, you can go to Rotary Club Central and set your contribution for the Rotary Foundation. Make sure that's in your club goals. And you want to encourage your foundation chair to do a program, preferably during November, which is Foundation Month, on the foundation. And another responsibility as the club president, you need to qualify your club for grants. And you do that by attending the grant session that we're going to have on the next hour. Ensure that the reports are submitted on time, and make sure if you have any grants that are open, that you make sure that when they are completed, that you close the grant. Next slide, please. So how do you make a positive impact? Lead by example, by making a personal contribution to the foundation. Ask your members to contribute, especially those that have never given. Look on that report. You're going to be surprised. You're going to see some people that have never given to the Rotary Foundation. Well, there's a reason why. Maybe they've never been asked, or they don't understand the importance of it. Find out why. Have your foundation chair or yourself talk to those individuals and find out, why aren't you giving to the Rotary Foundation? Maybe they want their dollars to be spent locally. Well, if you invest in the Rotary Foundation, that money does come back in the form of DDF, and you can utilize that for a local district grant. Excuse me. Make sure that you acknowledge contributions and participation. People love to be recognized, and they really appreciate being recognized in front of their peers. So make sure you acknowledge your club members that are Paul Harris Fellows. Make it a big deal. Make sure that if you do have a grant, make sure that there's proper stewardship of that grant. Make sure that the reports are done on time. Make sure that they're, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Is make sure that the grant funds are being spent properly and that the grant is being handled appropriately. And know where to find help. If you don't know something, ask for help. Next slide. Reports and goals. Next slide. So when you go to foundation reports, this is an example of the type of report that you can print. It's a club recognition summary. Recognition amount. It'll have, which is a combination of cash contributions and foundation recognition points received. Again, points do not count towards major donor recognition. And then the maximum amount that can be shown on the report is $9,000, which is a Paul Harris Fellow +8. And foundation recognition points. Like I said, whenever you are making your donations to the Rotary Foundation, and as you make dollars, and you gain dollars in your Paul Harris Fellow, you also receive points. I believe it's $1 a point. And those can be transferred to other individuals to help them achieve Paul Harris Fellow. There's a real simple form that you fill out, which is also available at the Rotary website. And again, points accumulate 1 for every dollar contributed, either to the annual fund, Polio Plus Fund, or the global grant. Next slide. This is another report that you want to look at. This is the E-Ray report, where every Rotarian every year eligibility report. So you can see it'll have the E-rate achieved current year, that's in that center box, and then it'll have the E-rate achieved prior year. And it'll also have on there sustaining members achieved. It'll have your per capita, your Paul Harris Society membership, and your participation. Next slide. Club fundraising analysis. So this is a really good report to look at because it will show the history, a 5-year history of your giving to the annual fund and the contributions. And this is very helpful to gauge what your goal is going to be for your year. You can see what the history of your club is given, and then base your giving for your year on this report. Again, the 5-year Rotary dashboard of the annual fund goals used to set goals which are submitted through your Rotary Club Central. Next slide. So when you need help with foundation, what do you do? Next slide. It's real easy. You can contact me. You can oh wait, you're supposed to ask Barry, right, Dan? Just kidding. So you can ask me, you can ask your assistant governor. You can seek help from our district trainer, which is past district governor Bill Chase. You can attend the district training assemblies where we try and teach what we can on these topics, the grants management seminar, or you can seek help from other clubs. Next slide. You can also seek help from Rotary International. There's the Rotary Support Center, and they'll answer questions about my Rotary. You can answer questions about donations, refunds, and corrections, Paul Harris Fellow issues, foundation recognition points, recognition items, how to enroll in Rotary Direct, and how to join the Paul Harris Society. There's also some reports that you can run from the support center. You can print your personal donor history, your club fundraising analysis, your club recognition summary. Those are some of those reports that we just looked at a few slides ago. Your E-rate eligibility report, and there's a slew of other reports that you can print there as well. Last but not least, next slide. You can contact the Rotary Support Center. Their email is contact.center@rotary.org. You can call them at 866-976-8279. Or you can contact me. My email is right there, yeager.steve@gmail.com. And my cell is 951-544-8936. A word of caution, if you call my cell, if you've never called me before, my phone will detect you as spam and will send you to a different folder. So make sure you leave a message. If you leave a message, then I can go back in and change it. If you email me, I'll respond within 48 hours. Next slide. So I guess we can field some questions now.
Rich, you want to look in the chat box there? So if you got some questions in the chat box, Rich will ask those.
In this version, I checked the registration for today's grant management seminar, and you are not registered for it. So Monday at 6 o'clock, we're going to have another grant management session. So the Zoom link is going to be the same as the one today. So if you can tune in at 6 o'clock on Monday, that'll be your grants management seminar. And there has to be 2 people from each club to view the grant management seminar to be eligible for grants. And
sure
then,
that I registered,
say it
but
again?
I never am sure that it gets through the system, but I'm registered. I'll have to go get the documentation if it makes me. I can't come here in the evening.
Yeah,
So
Dennis,
I'll have to be here today.
that happened to me too. So I did register for some of the sessions, and they didn't appear on the registration list that we get a few hours before. So would you be able to stay on for today then at 10 o'clock?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so why don't you do that? Because generally speaking, about 20% of the people that register don't log on. Okay.
Thank you. I knew you'd help.
Jim Smith had a note that the San Bernardino Rotary Club uses our district foundation funds to fund scholarships for our senior high participants in the Rotary Life program. I'm not too sure about that one. Steve, do you know anything about that?
I know about the Rotary Life project. I've seen that before and have looked into it, and I think that they do use their funds for that.
Yeah, it says our district foundation funds. So,
DDF, yeah, the local DDF, their DDF.
okay, so they're using not our district foundation funds, but they're using the DDF funds that they have accumulated or were given to use based on the proportionality of what they donated in the past. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's one of the problems with talking about foundations, because most clubs, they have 3 foundations they have to be able to segregate. And one is the Rotary Foundation, the other one is the District Foundation, and the other one is a club foundation. So when you're talking about foundations, you have to differentiate between those 3. So yeah, so basically they're using their DDF from the Rotary Foundation.
Yes.
For their scholarships. Thank you so much for clearing that up. Barry Valdez asking, how many Arch Clump members does our district have?
That's a good question. I know of at least 2. I don't know how many more, but I can find that out for you.
Yeah, you could find that out. And
3.
we have some Arch members
3.
are members of our district now, but I think they probably should be included in the number.
Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, I know of 6 right offhand,
Oh, wow.
if you count the ones that aren't currently members. And Phil, to everyone, what uses are available for points? So Steve?
So the uses for points are to help attain your next level of Paul Harris Fellow, or to help a fellow Rotarian attain their Paul Harris Fellow. To give you an example, at the end of each year, our foundation chair meets with club president, and they go over the club donation report, which lists out all of our club members and what donations, where they're at, how far away they are from attaining their next Paul Harris Fellow. We also look at members that have Paul Harris Fellow recognition points, because those accumulate also. And we see who has a lot of points. And we will contact those members that have that are close to getting their Paul Harris, and we'll ask them if they want to make a contribution here at the end, or an investment in the foundation of X amount of dollars to help them get that next Paul Harris Fellow level. If they say, yeah, I want to invest, but I don't have that much money, we'll see if they can go half or give what they can, and then have another member that has recognition points match that amount, so that they can then get their next Paul Harris level. And then that's nice, because then when we start off our new Rotary year with our new club president, we were able to recognize new Paul Harris Fellows. Last year, when we did this, we had 7 members attain a new Paul Harris Fellow. 2 received their first Paul Harris Fellow. They hadn't received one yet. This year, we had 3 members attain a next Paul Harris Fellow level. So I hope that answers your question. Use the points to help get to your next Paul Harris Fellow.
One of the things that we do use, Steve, is to recognize citizens that are not Rotarians with an honorary Paul Harris.
Yes, you can do that as well.
Yeah, so some clubs have recognition points built up from contributions that the club made to polio. So Phil, you're correct. That's a wonderful use of recognition points, either club recognition points, or you could harvest some from your club members to honor some non-Rotarian citizen of your community that has done a lot of service work. So it's a wonderful recognition. So thank you, Phil. Okay, David Wick asks, responsibility for keeping the focus on club fundraising and the various things you mentioned is the president's, and who else in the club? So who else in the club is responsible for keeping the focus on club fundraising and all the other things that you mentioned?
Well, I would say everyone in the club is responsible, but typically what you're going to look at is your president and your foundation chair. Some clubs are structured so that their incoming president or their president-elect is responsible for fundraising for that year. So if it's money that you're raising for polio or for donation to the annual fund, you want to include the foundation chair and your foundation committee to head up that fundraising.
Very good. Mark Howison said there was a PRF announcement today. Mark, what the heck was that?
Yeah, so I watched the opening ceremonies for the RI virtual convention this morning.
Very good.
And one of the biggest changes effective right now is that for a global grant written to have to do with COVID-19, does no longer, or for the rest of the year, does not require a global partner. So you can write a global grant right now if it's COVID-19 relief. You don't need a partner.
That's big.
Yeah, that is big.
Yeah.
Also, just recently too, cash contributions to a global grant are not matched at a 50 cents per dollar match by the World Fund. So that's something within the last couple months.
Yes, and that's going to affect those of you that are trying to leverage your dollars for global grants, counting on those cash contributions to be matched. They were in the past. They no longer are. So it'll just be what it is. If it's $100, it's $100.
That is supposed to happen as of July 1st. And it's one of the reasons I'm pushing to get my grant through immediately.
That's right. 10 more days.
Everybody's in that game right now. Everybody around the world is begging for money because they don't want to lose their cash contribution.
Right.
That's a big one. Tom User, on a private note, he says, just to confirm, we have 5 Arch Clump Society members in the district.
Thank you, Tom. And thank you, Tom, for stepping up. Tom is doing a larger role with foundation this year. He's at a zone level, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Tom?
That's right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, maybe Tom could answer this question I have. On the endowment fund, the slide said the goal was 150 million, but I think counting expectations is probably 500 or 600 million at this time. Do you have any knowledge on that, Tom?
Well, again, I'm not sure what the, whether it's an annual goal or, whatever the question may be, or the point that was being made. We have the overriding goal is 25 in 25 to reach 250 million by the year 2025.
Right. Yeah, so 150 million probably is an annual goal then. Also, Steve, on your slide on major donors too, I just want to say that if you have a spouse that's also a Rotarian, the $10,000 is the accumulation of your donations plus your wife's donations or your spouse's donations if they are Rotarian. So it doesn't have to be for each individual. So,
Thank you.
so that helps. We have any more questions? We have about 5 minutes. I do want to close by thanking some of our visitors. We had our District Governor-elect Barry join us, our District Governor nominee Dan Goodrich, who has been real instrumental on the registration for all these seminars. Also, we can't forget our District Assembly Chair, Elizabeth Gibbs, who's been doing a fantastic job also, along with Rudy. Rudy's been on every one. He's our IT guy and also our wonderful guy that puts the focus on what we should be doing at the proper time. So thank you, Rudy. PDG Mark Howison, we've heard from him, and the PDG Tom User also are with us. And PDG Helene, who is warming up for the next session. So she joined us also. So it was a wonderful morning. We learned about TRF, and now we're going to be learning about the grants management part that 2 people from each club has to see. And it will also be recorded. So I think if we don't have 2 people from one club at 10 o'clock or on Monday at 6 o'clock, they could go to YouTube and view the video, and that should qualify. Steve, one thing I want to ask too is about the MOU. So
Yes,
is that going to be on the Visit Rotary District files so that they could access it, or are you going to send one to every club president?
what we'll do is for the clubs that qualify, they will be sent the club or the district MOU, and then they will complete it and return it to me. And then at that point, I will put it on the 2020-21 MOU file on DACDB. So the completed forms will be on DACDB, and that way you can readily look and see who's qualified for district grants.
Very good. Also, Elizabeth, you're going to take roll for the grants management seminars.
Yes, correct. And if I could just ask those that are on this session that are staying over for the next one, if you're registered, if your screen name doesn't accurately reflect your name, I'm unable to verify that you're participating. So if you have a pseudonym as your screen name, if you would take a moment to please change that so that I can accurately take roll.
Very good. Yeah, Barbara Mueller just sent the chat, says, please provide a few examples how the COVID grants have been used. She was just curious. I know our club used it to buy non-perishable food items for the Coachella Valley Rescue Mission. So that's how we did ours. Anybody else?
Go ahead, Rich. No, okay. I was going to say, watching the presentation this morning, there was an awful lot of PPEs that were purchased for various hospitals and medical centers and that kind of stuff. So that's one easy way to do it, and it's a slam dunk. You don't even have to think about it. Everybody's got a medical center somewhere around them that I'm sure would love to have a donation for PPE. And we all know what PPE is now, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Steve, could you please remind everybody about the District Foundation dinner for the foundation. I believe it's at the Mission Inn. Any
It's-
particulars on that?
That's correct. Give me just a moment and I will.
Okay, that'll be the last question, and then we'll take a break. So those who aren't going to continue with the grant management seminar, you could log off after
So
after Steve answers his question. Right. Go ahead, Steve.
So the foundation gala is going to be on Saturday, November 7th at 5:30 p.m. at the Mission Inn, which is in Riverside. You can register at visitrotary.com/events, or you can call 951-809-3673. $150 per person, and there are special room rates available if you want to stay overnight. And come dressed in your best 20s costume. So it should be a fun night. Roaring 20s.
Let me give you guys an update on that as we speak. I've been dealing with the Mission Inn. They are still closed for their banquets and stuff. They're waiting for information to move forward. There's a possibility that the room will be limited in size. So I am working with the chair of the event to make sure we get a plan B going. So it's being affected. So we are working with them. So more information will be coming out as we get it.
Okay. On that note, I think we should
Thank you.
close down. The people that aren't going to continue could go ahead and log off, and